Hi, my name is Jack, and I did the freezer test in which I put the hourglass in the freezer thinking that over time it would take longer for the sand to fall through the hourglass.
Hi, I'm James. Jack and I went out to Morro Bay on my kayak to test if the rocking motion of a boat actually affected the flow rate, and I thought that it would actually slow the flow rate due to the sand possibly not being able to go through enough because of the movement.
My name is Sami, and I did 3 tests. The first one was putting the hourglass in the oven, and our guess there was that it was going to increase the size of the glass and therefore the sand would fall faster. The second test I did was basically using the hourglass to time my croissant cooking. And then the third test I did was basically taking the hourglass into the shower and therefore subjecting it to steam and humidity. And my guess there was that basically due to the heat, sand would fall faster, but then we weren't sure if the humidity would sort of clot up the sand as well. So results there were somewhat unknown.
Hi, my name's Sarah Mack, and for the final project I did the dryer test on the hourglass. So I stuck the hourglass on top of a dryer, and while it was drying my load of laundry I saw how long that it would take for all the sand and the materials to go through the hourglass. And so my prediction was it would take shorter because I was thinking, oh, the vibrations of the dryer will make the material flow through faster.
Hi, I'm Hannah. We ran the control test 15 times and we found that the average time was 15 minutes and 35 seconds.
At 15 minutes, you can clearly see that the flow rate of the hourglass is completely stopped because of probably some sort of contraction within the center. Here are the results so far. We see that there is a lot of inconsistencies. The first 4 tests using the hourglass ended up freezing right before the hourglass actually finished. Ever since those first 4 tests where it froze each time, it's been working pretty consistently since, but the accuracy of our results has not been consistent in the same way. Unfortunately, I was expecting some sort of trend that would prove that the hourglass would run more slowly every single time in the lower temperature inside the freezer. The times have not been consistent whatsoever, and we've seen both lower times and higher times.
For this test, I'm about to get in the shower, and the point is to simulate what happens to the hourglass in a humid environment. This room is pretty full of steam right now, and we're going to run the hourglass for the duration of the shower, and then we'll see sort of what effect that has on the timing of the hourglass. Alright, so we're getting to the end of the steam test, and you can see my watch is about there. So, oh, and it's done at 15:08.
Here we are with the hourglass on the drying machine. The vibrations are causing it to move a little bit, so I'm probably going to have to put something on the end so it doesn't fall off, but I think that it's definitely like vibrating. 27 minutes left on my load of laundry in the dryer. I've run the hourglass 1 time through. It took exactly 16 minutes and 2 seconds for all the material to get to the bottom. I'm gonna run this 2 more times.
Alright, now we're out here on the sand. Got Jack, got the kayak, hourglass in the back. We're gonna get out on the water here, make sure we can actually see if this hourglass is affected at all. Alright, now we're out on the water here in the kayak. We've got the hourglass. We're going to go out into the bay and back for about 15 minutes and see how accurate this timer actually is.
Here we are. We're about to do our oven test, which is going to gradually apply more and more heat to the hourglass so that no instantaneous pressure is applied to the hourglass and therefore it won't break. All right, so here we go. To do several repetitions, it would be easier just to kind of keep it at a constant temperature. So we're keeping it at the low temperature of You know, 170, that's low relative to what an oven can do, but pretty high relative to what any sort of hourglass would encounter on a ship, you know, in the equator. You can see it's been a little bit more than 15 minutes, and we're still running here, which is a little bit weird. We just finished our last test at 15 minutes and 53 seconds. That's pretty long. It's a lot longer than we expected. I could have dropped my croissant! For this test, we're going to see how these croissants turn out when we time them using the hourglass. I've estimated out about what 10 minutes looks like on the hourglass. So I'm going to flip it over. The 10 minutes are going to run out, and I'm going to flip it over again, and we'll have another 15 minutes run out, adding up to a total of 25 minutes. Into the oven. Close the oven door and flip the hourglass. There we go. And now time out the remaining 15 minutes of required cooking time, and then we'll see how the croissants turn out. And that'll really depend on both the accuracy of the hourglass as well as the accuracy of my initial measurement for, you know, what 10 minutes of sand looks like. It's just completely eyeballed, but that's really what you have to do when you're measuring with an hourglass. They look brown. I think that's a good sign. It actually only ended up being about 22.06 minutes. So basically what that means is that in all likelihood, my estimation of what 2/3 of the time looked like in the hourglass was wrong. Here I am, and I'm gonna try one of the croissants we cooked. Pretty good. You can see they're about the right color. You know, they only cooked for about 22 minutes. The accuracy of our timing was a little bit off, but the croissants still, you know, came out pretty good. I would say, you know, maybe they're a little bit dark, but overall, I'd say pretty good.
So the final results for the dryer test were that it took 15.91 seconds on average for the material to flow through. I think this is due to possibly maybe grains of sand getting stuck in there because of the movement and maybe not flowing at a constant rate. So I think that might be why it took longer.
Overall, the results of the freeze test with the hourglass that we purchased ended up being faster than the control. And I was initially expecting the contraction of the inner part of the hourglass to become smaller, which would allow less sand to flow through. But for some reason, that's not what we saw, or it's not what we observed.
So like I said with the kayak test, I expected the hourglass to actually slow down in timekeeping ability, but it turned out that the hourglass sped up by almost a minute faster than the control. I think that's because when I was actually paddling and the rocking of the boat was happening, the sand was folding over into the middle of the hourglass, increasing center weight and speeding up the flow rate.
And then for the results that I got, first for the hourglass in the oven, where we were subjecting it to 170 degrees Fahrenheit temperature. Again, you know, we expected the hourglass to go faster, and fortunately it did. It went on average about 24 seconds faster than the control. And then we got the same results for the steam, you know, subjecting it to steam and, you know, a combination of steam, you know, heat and humidity basically with the shower. There it was again about 24 seconds faster than the control. For the croissant cooking test, what ended up happening is I was supposed to cook the croissants for 25 minutes, and with a 15-minute timer, basically I estimated 2/3 of the timer and then used that to cook 10 minutes and then flipped it for the additional 15 and ended up cooking the croissants for about 22 minutes based on my stopwatch. So my estimation was a little bit off, but they still came out to be pretty good. They were a little bit too brown, but they tasted pretty good. So overall, this method did pretty much work to cook.
In summary, we can see that the hourglass time measurement is extremely variable and that these devices cannot be trusted to tell time accurately, especially for people that need time measurements down to the second.